Hello and welcome to Cinema Subculture, where we discuss everything strange, obscure, and downright messed up in the world of movies. My name's Gary.
And I'm Simon. So, Gary, what film are we discussing this evening?
Elephant is a 2003 film directed by Gus Van Sant. Following a group of high school students on the day of a school shooting, Van Sant employs distinctive tracking shots which follow individuals and groups depicting the same events from multiple perspectives. It's the second film in Van Sant's Death trilogy, which was part of a move away from his commercial success to develop a more experimental film style.
Okay, Gary. So, we chatted before that this was kind of a pick of mine. I had never seen this film before. Have you seen all the films in the Death trilogy?
Yes.
Yeah, this is the second one, isn't it? I mean, I guess we've kind of
Yeah.
started in the middle here. Okay, well, I'll throw it to you just to get an idea of what you think of this film.
Sure, yeah, I think this is a great piece of work. It's interesting. Van Sant's a director who's had traversed quite a sort of array of styles, from his most commercial Oscar-winning material with Good Will Hunting to some really quite experimental stuff. I think this is one that's sort of in the middle. I love the kind of tense dynamic you get. It's a real sense of foreboding. You get with the distinctive tracking shots that Van Sant employs. Great, it captures this really well. Sort of mundane, sort of day to day life in the function of the school. I think it's quite fascinating that for if when you hear about this film or a film depicting loosely based on the Columbine school shootings, you're imagining a lot full of drama and violence. But I love how basically Van Sant dials down the drama to almost zero in this one, but it still has a wonderful sense of mood and sort of tension as it builds up. He has this great device of basically showing the same space of time from multiple character perspectives, which works really well. It's almost approaching real time, but not quite. And this day, this school day, which we know, what as the film progresses, we kind of know what's going to happen at the end. But it's captured really well. Yeah, so he was working with minimal script, sort of non-professional actors. My minor criticism might be that ultimately it maybe doesn't add up to much. It feels a little slight, based on the kind of subject matter that he's dealing with. It's maybe a little, just shrugs its shoulders a wee bit to the content, but I still think it's really captivating and great piece of work.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I wasn't really sure of the kind of experimental nature of this film before we watched it. I didn't really know the format at all. Um, but yeah, I really loved the kind of the time we spent with these characters without, as you say, over dramatizing anything. It was almost like there was just in the mundane like actions of the school day. The tracking shot where we follow the kind of jock guy from the football field where they've been playing, and it's not even following any of the action there that's happening. It's just kind of the camera's just sitting there almost, and then he gets kind of ready, and we follow him all the way into the school through this really long scene that we kind of visit from different perspectives later on. And it kind of has that. It has a double thing for me. It had double thing for me where it kind of it built this tension because ultimately I knew what the film was about and what it was probably leading to. But as I say, it also just made you kind of it wasn't you were growing an attachment to the characters, but you certainly recognized them. You know what I mean? You were like, oh, you know who these people are when it switches perspective, and you kind of get right. Something's again because of the idea of the film, you know where it's going, and you kind of have this foreboding kind of fear for them. But yeah, I thought I really loved the editing here and the kind of as he just the cinematography, the way that it was set up. As I say, that it was so mundane in certain points, but it was also really beautiful. I thought with just the kind of it was almost a little bit of starkness, or just kind of felt quite real and grounded to a school setting. Again, a lot of especially I find American dramas set in schools can be quite I don't know if it's over the top or not. I've never been to a school in America, right? But like, it certainly feels quite dramatic, right? Whereas here I felt we managed to completely ground that all the way through. But no, I was really impressed with this. It was really captivating, which is surprising with, as I say, how mundane some of the stuff can be, but you're just kind of gripped to it right from the even the opening with the just and then the closing with the clouds and the day becoming night, etc. You're just what it's just really unsettling almost, because of the subject matter. But yeah, as I've seen Good Will Hunting. I've seen the Psycho remake. So this is only kind of. I mean, I remember I'm pretty sure I enjoyed Good Will Hunting. It's been a while since I've seen it, but certainly this was awesome. Do you want to can we move a little bit deeper into maybe the plot a little bit, right? Because I was kind of surprised. I guess, but only having seen the poster for the film, right? So the character of John, who's the first character we kind of meet with his dad, I had it in my head that I had it in my head the film took the format that we were just going to be following the killers. So when we first introduced to John, I thought he was one of the shooters, and then the next character we're introduced to, I've lost his name. Is it Elias, the photographer?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was they were the two friends, and that's where that was going. So it was really surprising when we first see them meet in the corridor from the first perspective we see it, and it's just like a kind of passing conversation, and then they go their separate ways. And it took me a while through that kind of first run of a sequence where we essentially follow the John character. It was really, I was starting to think, so that's interesting. They're not playing about with, he doesn't seem to be getting excessively bullied, or he seems to have, he doesn't seem to be, he's got family troubles. His dad's an alcoholic, or there's something happening there, but it doesn't seem to be what the kind of traditional narrative that's built around, especially the Columbine murders and stuff. These people were picked on. So we get there, and again we meet Elias' character, and he's not really getting any kind of anything happen to him. Again, very undramatic, right? So then when it was quite shocking, I found it quite. It took me aback when we see John walking out after he's playing with the dog outside, and we see the two killers walking in, and instantly, right. You just know that image if you know anything about the Columbine murders. And I was like, oh, right, that way, for some reason I don't know why, I just thought that was what the film was about, and then it switched his perspective. So that was quite interesting.
Right, yeah. I do like the fact that it kind of shows that all these characters have things going on in their personal lives, that it's not as simple as because these guys were bullied, therefore they become school shooters. It shows like John's problems with his dad. It shows the Michelle character struggling to fit in with other female students in her year. So I like that kind of nuance that breaks out, but it does show that the Alex character, who is one of the shooters, does have the most blatant incident of being bullied. But I think what's great about the film is that it doesn't provide any motivation really. It hints at motivations for the killings. It's got like the fact that they can just go online and buy guns, that they're into video games, that they're bullied, that they're into Nazi history, but I think that this is what Van Sant talked about being one of his motivations, that like when one of these things happens, like everyone wants a reason, wants something to blame. But Van Sant's sort of saying that, well, is there any real specific reason? Like no one really can tell why they did it. it's very complex, the kind of psychology or something like that.
Yeah.
So I like that subtlety that he brings to the table. The depiction of everything is like extremely matter of fact, in terms of cinematography and the narrative. It's almost like a documentary style, basically just very plain, just following the action.
Yeah, yeah. Once the perspective kind of switches to the two shooters, I felt like that was I quite like the initial part when we see the Alex character, taking notes in the school, and the girl asks him what you doing, and he says, I'm just making my plan. I thought that was quite cold and quite chilling, and really well done. I felt like maybe there was some. You're right. Like there's one scene of kind of blatant, as you would call it, bullying with the Alex character. We don't really get to see the Eric character at school. Um, but I don't know. Like, how did you feel? Like the kind of I was getting hints of it at the breakfast table already, but they introduced like a kind of like a relationship, kind of a sexual relationship type element
Yeah.
to their relationship, which I felt. I guess I felt a bit unnecessary.
Okay.
Like, and I wasn't sure what Van Sant was maybe trying to say, or if there was anything he was trying to say. It just seemed, and I got the kind of innocence from the shower scene when they're like basically saying I've never even kissed anyone. So I kind of got that, but I don't know. It's made like 20 years ago, right? So like you're just wondering if what's happening with that scene,
Yeah, maybe it was slightly unnecessary. I mean, probably Van Sant is gay himself, and he's got this. They
Right.
came out of like sort of queer cinema. If you go back through his catalogue, so I guess maybe just for him, it's like if it was a kiss, a heterosexual kiss, maybe we wouldn't think twice about it. But
No, yeah, I think it was probably just with me knowing that the basis of the film. So I didn't, and it wasn't an element I was aware of the Columbine shooting. So it felt like and it is interesting. I didn't realize that Van Sant was gay. It's interesting. Then it's even more kind of weird that he would make his two killers in the film also
right,
gay. I don't know. It just seemed. It seemed like an element that I didn't necessarily kind of see, like, or I don't know, see any kind
cool.
of. There was no payoff in it. There
Right,
was no kind of.
I did think it was when the Eric character says I've never kissed anyone. I thought that was quite striking because it's obviously like we assume that they're going to kill themselves after, and it's just like shows how young they are.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I suppose that does get that
yeah,
message
yeah,
across. You're right. But I mean, that is what you take away from that scene is that they're.
yeah.
Yeah, I guess maybe just it's hard to kind of not colour my. Like, I knew they were gonna like I assumed they were gonna kill themselves already because of the Columbine thing, right? But you're right. If you didn't know that certainly drives it home. But anyway, I just thought it was an interesting element, and I wondered what if there was anything behind that, if there was any kind of message you would say in there. But
Yeah, but I did quite like the nod to the Beethoven, when the Alex character's playing Beethoven on the piano, which I don't know if this was intentional, but it does. It's interesting when I think the Columbine thing blew up. Like people like Marilyn Manson, Korn, etc., were getting blamed. So I
oh
think
yeah,
that's
right.
maybe a wee nod to like.
That's pretty good.
I
Yeah, like, I never picked that up. I thought it was a really cool scene with the two of them. But yeah, no, that's really that's true. Yeah, you wouldn't expect necessarily.
yeah, them to be playing
Uh,
Beethoven on the piano. But I think that piece of music works so well to it's so
mhm.
menacing and moody.
Yeah, I loved the line that Eric says. Like he sits down, he goes, "You suck." Like I love that. I really enjoyed that because it was this quite long scene of this beautiful music and really played with quite a bit of sincerity and even he's the friend comes in who you think is probably going to take the piss out of him initially, like, but he just sits and listens and then he waits to the last minute to give him a little
Yeah.
gut check. Also, the stuff with the as you say with them how the ease of buying guns and stuff like that,
Yeah.
I thought that was almost like for living in the UK that we do it almost seems like a fake
Mm.
thing. You're like it looks almost you know, unreal, if you know what I mean. But I'm sure it's. I mean, I've seen Bowling for Columbine, and I'm sure those websites exist, and it is as easy as they say to buy weapons and stuff. But it's quite scary. And kind of, as I say, there's a kind of level of, you know, unrealness to it.
Yeah, this quote stood out to me from Roger Ebert's review. He was talking about how Francois Truffaut had said it's hard to make an anti-war film because war is so exciting, and Roger Ebert said Van Sant has made an anti-violence film by draining violence of energy, purpose, glamour, reward, and social context.
An interesting point, because I came away, like, again, someone who's watched, like, you know, several documentaries about the Columbine shootings and stuff like that, and it definitely left me with that same feeling of kind of, you know, it didn't feel like, as you say, it wasn't exciting, it wasn't over dramatizing things, it was just kind of matter of fact. And I think he managed to quite, you know, portray that quite sincerely and authentically to the actual, you know, to what it was kind of basing it
Yeah.
on, and get that idea across.
Yeah, the only maybe criticism you could throw at it would be to say, is it just kind of shrugging its shoulders and saying, you know, probably presenting it as just something that happens in a kind of mundane school day? Is it sort of saying, oh well, it's just one of the things that happens all the time? Should the film take a more kind of a serious look at it, or should it be more respectful to the kind of power of the violence? I don't know.
I think that the respect comes, perhaps. I mean, one way to look at it is, you know, there's conversations that happen with the characters there that feel very real, and I think someone watching it might have what you would think might have the reaction, oh, that's just like my school. This could happen
Yeah.
anywhere, you know, and it's kind of. In maybe a light way, but it's maybe trying to bring some sort of like awareness of, you know, that whole, we all have that kind of mindset of, oh, that can't happen
Yeah.
here, and or like, oh, these people are, you know, like, people don't notice when people are maybe having mental health issues, and in the build up to these things they often don't notice, and it's, I think maybe it's trying to kind of show that it is just a stark, you know, it's a reality.
Yeah.
Well, that's, you know, it's and maybe, you know, not to get complacent.
Yeah, I think it kind of takes a nice balanced approach because it humanises the killers a little bit. It doesn't just kind of demonise them as villains. But I think it's clear that the film stands as that the violence is, you know, ugly. Like Van Sant said, they wanted to present real violence kind of as shocking and ugly. And I think, for me, I think the film, I would say the film is moving, and quite chilling. So I think for me it does have the intended impact, or the, what we might say should be the proper impact to a film depicting a subject like this. But one thing that stood out to me from a review in The Guardian by Peter Bradshaw was he described it as one of the most disturbing films of the year when it came out. And this made me think of like some of the conversations we've had about the August Underground, and like when you're stripping out dramatic, traditional dramatic storytelling, does that lose the impact of drama, the impact of the violence? I think Van Zandt's treatment, I wouldn't know, I don't know if I'd go as far to say it's disturbing, but I think it's chilling and it's quite hard hitting. It's definitely a film that makes you think about what's depicted on screen. But I was just wondering if you had a take on that, because we were basically saying like this is probably a step towards this. If traditional Hollywood filmmaking is the centre, and August Underground's like right on the left, this is like a step in from August Underground, but it's still stripping out what you might think as traditional filmmaking grammar, which would create that emotional impact we think that we should get from film.
Yeah, and as you're kind of saying all that, I was kind of, I'm thinking in my head, laying the two sets of films up, and I think I think this definitely, chilling's the exact right word for it. It's and I could see how it could be disturbing to people quite, honestly, like when even just the scene when they both get in the car and they're heading to the school, the killers. I don't know, there was something that was quite, it's quite quiet. It felt, I don't know, just too real. As again, you could have been watching found footage almost at certain parts of those scenes, right? And I think that the difference and the reason, maybe the reason that August Underground didn't quite have the same effect for us, or that chilling effect even, is because even though what's depicted is graphic and quite real, I think the fact that it is so graphic, almost, and it's not something I think we're used to seeing as a real
Mm.
thing. It's maybe that kind of uncanny valley thing that you get where your brain's kind of
Right, right,
saying that's
okay.
not real,
Yeah, that
you
can't be
know.
depicted in that movie. Therefore, it's not real.
Aye, yeah, yeah. It's almost, you kind of like, you can't force your brain, because like, that was one of the criticisms I had for those films, was that I knew it wasn't real going in, so I couldn't treat it as
Mm.
found footage in my brain. But trying, with this film, which as you say moves kind of closer to like a mainstream, um, it's still stripped everything away, and it's still kind of presenting things, even though it's not a kind of handheld camera style shoot, but it manages to move you and
Yeah,
disturb and or chill, like give you that like uneasy, really, tension film
yeah.
filled
I
feeling.
think what's
um
might like disturb an audience a little bit as well is that Van Sant's just presenting it in such a matter of fact way. He's not giving you a way to feel about what's on screen. The camera's quite detached from the action. We're just a sort of almost a voyeur, like following these characters about. The camera doesn't give us much to go on as to how to feel about the actions on screen. So for some people in that way, they might get upset because like people tend not to enjoy films in that way, where they come out like quite confused, not clear as to what the film is trying to say.
and another thing you can't take away from this film, that helps with that, it stands in its corner for the impact that it has, is the real life events, right? So people either know that this is based on Columbine, or certainly know that that's a thing. So there's like a real life parallel. So it's like, watching a recreation of a real life tragedy is, I think, more, or can be more impactful than watching again like a fictionalized version of a potential, serial killer. I think that, people will be disgusted by August Underground, I think, and turn it off, most people, before they are like, get to the point where they would be disturbed by it, or kind of, oh my god, that actually
Yeah,
happened,
yeah.
that type of feeling,
Um,
I think.
the one scene in the movie that I totally forgot about at the end is maybe the most dramatic or the most traditionally dramatic moment, where
Oh
Eric gets
yeah,
shot.
yeah.
We presume by Alex.
Uh-huh.
I totally forgot that was coming, and just out of nowhere, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like, oof.
Yeah, I was that took me by surprise, as well. Yeah, it
Yeah,
wasn't
there's
something I
not
was
a lot of
expecting.
context for why as well that we think that happened, but we assume that the Alex is the guy who is planning it more than in Eric.
Mm-hmm.
He's the one who had the sort of grand plan in his head. But yeah, that really works in a film which basically boils down the drama to zero. That was
Mm-hmm.
like a nice like shock at the end that really worked. Aye.
Yeah, and it does kind of, then transition into the scene in the
Mm.
freezer with the couple held at gunpoint, is again, which is a kind of almost quite traditional, like drama type scene, the
Mm.
kind of standoff, which the rest of the film doesn't kind of have, but well, it does have, it has with the teacher on the ground and stuff like that, but it's not like a traditional standoff, because it's very much like he's just kind of playing, but but um, but yeah. So yeah, a couple of final thoughts. this was a surprising film, even though I knew what the content was, or even just the way it was put together was something I wasn't necessarily expecting. But this feels like a film that I could quite happily revisit again and again, because I feel that with the multiple perspectives, you're gonna get different things out of it. And for me, going in expecting the first two characters we see, John and Elias, were the killers, kind of, it stopped me maybe looking for other things. So I'm definitely looking forward to watching this again. And I definitely recommend it. I don't think it's one. I think it's, unlike some films we watch, I think it's quite a fairly easy recommend. But just because of the way it's presented, and I think it's done quite respectfully as well. This was a really engrossing film. Really enjoyed it.
Great, yeah, I'd agree well with that. Great piece of work. Some great performances. Really interesting camera work. Oh, we never mentioned the camera tracking shots, which Gus Van Sant took from an Alan Clark film called Elephant as well.
Yeah, I wondered that.
Yeah, that's kind of where the name came from. But they are sort of really well done, really kind of mesmerising.
Well choreographed as well, for the multiple angles. Like, I'm assuming those weren't shot at the same time. So
the shots in this movie that I realised rewatching that I've kind of stuck in my head, particular images that have stuck in my head over the years. So a really kind of thoughtful take on some serious subject matter, but done very tastefully and with an interesting perspective on it. So recommend it. So you've been listening to Cinema Subculture. If you'd like more of this great content, make sure you've subscribed on YouTube, like the video and hit the notification bell.
Thanks for listening. I've been Simon.
I've been Gary.
Keep it extreme.
It was a nightmare.